This is junk volume.
Junk volume.
Junk volume.
The volume fallacy.
Why didn't you go hard in the workout? Like,
why didn't you go hard in the workout?
Today we're going to be talking about junk volume. I think junk volume.
Junk volume. ਤਾਂ ਤੂੰ ਚੈਸਟ ਦਾ ਵਰਕਆਊਟ ਕਰਨਾ ਸੀ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਤੂੰ ਬੈਂਚ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ
Junk volume refers to
Junk volume.
Junk volume.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. This week I want to talk to you about the word on the street, which seems to be junk volume, and why you probably don't have to be that concerned about it, and why it might actually be a good thing for you to be doing. Now, if you don't know what junk volume is, congratulations, you have a life. Keep it that way. The real simple definition that we're going to use is work that you're performing, mainly reps and sets that you're doing, that is no longer stimulating some type of strength or hypertrophy gain, and the only thing it's doing now is making you tired. Now let's go through an example of what that actually looks like in a workout. Imagine 3 sets of 10 to 20 reps on a bicep curl. It's simple, everybody's done it. You've warmed up and you're now going into your first set. This set is going to be the most challenging. You're at your freshest and your least fatigued, so you're able to put all your energy and effort into this top set. It's very, very stimulating, but it's also very fatiguing. And then you're going to rest a little bit, and then you're going to go again for a second set. Now, this second set, it's still very stimulating, but because you're somewhat fatigued from the first set, it's not quite as stimulating. You're not able to do as many reps or use as much weight. And as you can see on this highly scientific graph that I got from Boston University and didn't just make up myself, the second set is still giving you some stimulus, but it's starting to level out. It's not spiking quite as high as it did on the first set. So you're still getting something out of it, but not as much as the first set. Now, this is where the idea of junk volume comes in. If you went and did a third set, because you pushed the first and second set so hard, you got pretty much all the stimulus out of those first 2 sets that you're going to get, but you've noticed that the fatigue just continues to climb up and up and up. So now if you go into a third or fourth or fifth set, you're no longer stimulating growth. You're now just accumulating fatigue, and it's basically a waste of your time. You're just going to have to recover from it, and it's not really doing anything for you. But don't forget that this is just an example to help you conceptualize what I'm talking about. There's different schools of thought on junk volume and when it begins. There's different interpretations of research, and some coaches think this, other coaches think that. I'm just trying to give you a very basic idea of the junk volume concept. Now, there's a couple reasons why I don't want you guys worrying about junk volume too much. The first one is that a lot of the data and research that guys are drawing on when they talk about this has to do with maximizing hypertrophy, which is great if you're a bodybuilding focused athlete, but the vast majority of you are general preparedness athletes or tactical athletes, whatever you want to call yourself, and you have multiple goals that involve strength, conditioning, martial arts, as well as gaining more muscle. And so even though there's a lot of great concepts and information that we should take from bodybuilding, your training's not necessarily going to look the same, and you don't need to push your training to the same extent because the goal isn't the same. The second reason is that a lot of the thinking around junk volume has to do with high intensity, relatively low volume training that's generally done on machines, and you're going to do, let's say, 2 sets to failure or past failure maybe twice a week. And if you have strength focused goals where you're going to be using a lot of barbell lifts like the deadlift, squat, bench, overhead press, pushing those things to failure with relatively low volume or close to failure probably isn't the greatest long-term approach in my experience. You should be doing a little bit more volume with a little bit more of a submaximal intensity if you want to get the best strength development in the long term. The third reason is that you guys are most likely not strong enough, muscular enough, coordinated enough to get everything you need out of a workout in 1 to 3 sets. You need to take a little bit more time to practice the movements and build yourself up so that you can eventually get to the point where you do something that's a little bit more high intensity, low volume. as opposed to these more advanced guys who have a lot of muscle and they're very strong and they can do a lot of damage to themselves in those 1 to 2 sets, and they almost have to back off by necessity. But if you skip that 4th, 5th, or 6th set of an exercise because you think it's junk volume, you're missing out on valuable practice, and you're missing out on building up your work capacity and your volume, and that's going to be a big part of how you get bigger and stronger. And it might feel like I'm trying to get you to do something that's a world away from these higher intensity, lower volume approaches, but I'm really not. The difference between what some guys on Instagram or YouTube might be talking about and what I'm talking about may be 2 to 3 sets. And it's a relatively small difference, but I think in the long run, it makes a big difference with your overall athletic development. To give you an example of what I mean, not too long ago, I was working with somebody who was about 160 pounds, and they wanted to get their first 315 deadlift, which was about 2 times body weight for them. And so in addition to their normal deadlift work, I wanted him to do the 45-degree angle back extension machine. And at first he was hesitant, and it took a little bit of convincing for him to do this movement because he couldn't see how a body weight exercise was going to help him increase his 1 rep max on the deadlift. But I said, trust me, let's just do it. You're going to see the results. And so he did it for the first time, and he warmed up and then did a working set and went to about 10 reps and really, really struggled to get to 10. And he said, my lower back is totally pumped. My hamstrings are killing me. I'm surprised I couldn't do more than 10. And so I told him, yeah, if you're this weak on this movement and it's just your body weight, there's probably a lot of benefit and development that we can get out of doing this movement and getting you just a little bit better at it. So for the next 6 weeks or so, we had him focus on getting better at those back extensions in addition to just his normal deadlift work. And he went from being able to only do maybe 1 set of 10, which was like a max effort event for him, to 3 sets of 20 to 25 reps with 25 pounds. So a huge difference in performance just over 6 weeks because he was so underdeveloped with this movement and on this machine. And what he didn't understand at the time, but would appreciate later, is that we were putting more muscle on his posterior chain. We were getting his lower back stronger and more mobile through a rounded movement pattern, which is not something he had ever done before. He had only done lower body lifts with a very flat back neutral spine angle, and he was challenging his hamstrings in a way that they hadn't been challenged before. If you've ever done that back extension machine, it forces you to lock out your legs, which is very taxing on the hamstrings. And we only spent about 6 weeks getting him better at that movement, and then we moved on to something more difficult. But about a month after that, he deadlifted 315 for the first time, and then went on to deadlift 405 at like 170, which is really good. And there's not anything special about the 45-degree back extension machine. There's 5 other movements we could have done that would have done almost the exact same thing. But we got in more work and developed him in ways that he had not been developed before. And I worry that when beginners are seeing this concept of junk volume, that they're going to avoid accessory work or back off sets with their main lifts that are going to be really, really important to their overall development. I just don't want you guys to be afraid of doing a little bit of extra work because you think it's going to dampen your progress somehow. Ultimately, there's 1,000 different ways to make progress. The most important thing is that you get off the couch and into the gym and be consistent, work hard, have fun, and that's how you're going to make progress. Thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.